You thought things would be different this time. That was your second mistake. The first was trusting Santino Ferrucci. Welcome back to Motorsport 101.
First sodding intro. Good God. Hi everybody, I'm Dre Harrison. Welcome to episode 516 of the IndyCar Cursed Grand Prix, formerly sponsored by Sonsio, as you do.
It's still sponsored by Sonsio.
Yeah. It's the Indy Grand Prix. It's the one at the road course.
It's the prelude to Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever debut. It's the prelude to a really natally 2 games between Ryan Eric King, our friend now at Jalopnik's beloved New York Knicks, and the Indiana Pacers.
Indeed, and also, ironically enough, Alex Palou's car number is the same amount of turnovers that Caitlin Clark had in her WNBA debut.
Oh,
as you do.
Shout out the Connecticut Sun, our one remaining pro sports team left.
Yay, as you do. But yes, I'm Dre Harris. Welcome to episode 516 on IndyCar's Indy Road Course Grand Prix Thingamabob. And it's been a while. Well, if you don't count Thermal, the brand-to-brand marketing event masquerading as an IndyCar race. But yes, Alex Palou is back in the winner's circle because let's not forget, people, Alex Palou is still him. Joining me to talk about how much he's still him, first of all, is RJ O'Connell.
They just ran his DNA test, and as it turns out, he is, in fact, 100% Himalayan.
As you couldn't be more him if he tried. And also
he is
joining us...
Himulation.
Also joining us is Cam Buckley. Hello, Cam.
Hello, everyone. After this past weekend, my skin is moisturized. My crops are flourishing. The sun is shining, although not it's outside right now.
Oh.
And 22 consecutive top 10 finishes.
We'll get into how crazy that is, but
you just can't beat this guy.
You cannot beat this guy, no matter how quickly you drive, no matter how good your pit stops are. Alex Palou and the number 10 Ganassi crew always have an ace up their sleeve.
Ace is usually him.
They just find a way to get it done, and this is one of Palou's stomping ground tracks. He won here last year. This was where he had his second IndyCar win. He's now got double digits. He's now in the 10 winners club, as it is, matching his car number. And we'll break down just how brilliant his race was, as well as for me, it was a story of the top 3 and how their respective seasons have played out so far. So we'll talk about Palou's role, as well as Will Power and Christian Lundgaard's role, as they took the podium finishing spots at the Indy Road Course race, and how it's played into their seasons so far. Also, we'll talk about beef. It's what's for dinner, and it's what Santino Ferrucci was giving out to Romain Grosjean early on in the race, and I have some thoughts on IndyCar's marketing of this, because this is getting a little bit wild, even by IndyCar standards on Santino Ferrucci.
IndyCar marketed something?
I mean, what else are we going to talk about? Like, both days of 500 practice that we've had so far have been mostly washed out.
Yeah, just rain and helmet tributes.
Helmet tributes, replays of said thermal race, reminders that the IndyCar and NBC theme is an actual banger, and I'll be sad if it leaves.
And Kyle Larson figuring out that he can't have Tony Kanaan as a reserve if he can't actually race at the 500. Whoops.
Uh-oh.
That might be a problem. Because Tony Kanaan can't take a refresher. And even though we teased it on social media, there is no chance Tony Kanaan is racing in this year's race. How unfortunate, if you're that way inclined. But we'll talk about all of that and more over the next 40 minutes or so. Basically, you can find us real quick. We are on Twitter at motorsport_101. Our personal handles at Dre Harrison101, at RJ O'Connell, and at CBuckley917. You can follow us on YouTube for all your episodes now as well. YouTube.com/motorsport 101. That also includes our Instagram page, Motorsport 101 Pod, and our website, motorsport101.com, where you can listen to these episodes live as they're being recorded. If you back us at the $10 level, you can back us at the $5 level as well, if you feel like getting early access on all of our content, including, hey, if you just follow the page, you get the first 2 minutes of every show for free. What's not to like? You know, you can get these creative intros right in your inbox, because you wouldn't want that, quite frankly.
Give us your money. We got a
reasonably good show for you. You know, it's worth it. Honest, you know,
we try. We try. Honestly,
we try. Indeed, all the good places you can find us on social media, as well as our show itself on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts for the next month before it becomes YouTube Music, and Spotify and all that good stuff as well. Without further ado, let's get into the IndyCar Sonsio Grand Prix.
And another reminder that Alex Palou is still him. He qualified on pole position for this IndyCar Grand Prix at Indianapolis, and despite Christian Lundgaard leading the first 36 laps of the Indy Grand Prix, a monster overcut from the Spaniard, aided by a great pit stop and Lundgaard and Will Power getting embroiled in lap traffic, got him the lead, and he stayed there the rest of the way to take the maximum 54 points of the weekend, his 10th IndyCar win, and the championship lead going into the Indianapolis 500, where, according to a sports book in the United States that shall remain nameless, but I'll tell you that they are predominantly green, he is now 4-1 betting odds favorite. What did you make of this triple fight? We got another WrestleMania triple threat between Power, Palou, and Lundgaard.
The terrifying stat that IndyCar put up earlier today on social media. This was Alex Palou's 22nd consecutive top 10 finish, going back to the 2022 season. And I can go one further than this. If we can make it 23 unofficially if you chuck in his win at the Thermal Club, but even more so if you include if you break this down a little bit further, out of those 23 top 10 finishes, 19 of them are top 5 finishes. That's
it. That's the race. That's the race summarized, and back to the studio.
Damn.
Well, you can't beat that. This is a series designed so that you can't do that.
Spec chassis, choice of one of two engines, at least for the time being. Really, the only thing you could play with is like the dampers and a few other like insignificant parts, and that's it. And we talked about it all last year, and yet Alex Palou has dropped 22 consecutive top 10 finishes on everybody's head and shoulders. Like, people would kill to have that for their entire careers, let alone just like a span of races that, you know, he's 24 out of the last 25.
Yeah, it's
top 10s.
It's pretty good.
It's nuts. Like we all know how otherworldly his 2023 season was, where he ran the field over, and really started at this very race last year, where he beat, ironically, Christian Lundgaard in that showdown as well by out-strategizing the Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing team on that occasion. He's 25 points better than he was this time last year through the first 4 championship rounds. He's
in a season where he took Scott Dixon to Gapplebee's across the season.
I'd like to remind everybody that, like, he's still only, like, I don't think it turns 27 until later this year. He just got here 4 seasons ago, 2020. Back in the pandemic year with Dale Coyne. This is only his 4th season with Ganassi. He has won championships in 2 of the previous 3, and all of this almost didn't happen if he didn't get cold feet.
Yeah.
You can see why he stayed.
It's just a devastatingly effective playbook to run an IndyCar field over.
Let's not get it twisted. Like, Christian Lundgaard drove about as well as he possibly could. He
did everything he could, man.
He qualified in the front row, and it's just like, I know Christian Lundgaard's probably due for promotion, but just like, if Rahal Letterman loses him, Who are they going to get to push them forward?
What else do they got right now?
What else did they got? Do you think Yuri Vips is that guy? Do you think Pietro Fittipaldi is that guy?
No.
I don't think. Graham Rahal hasn't been that guy since 2016.
Yeah, Christian Lundgaard is, in my opinion, and feel free to shout me down on this one, I think he's a top 5 road or street course driver in IndyCar now.
I'm not going to... I put him in, like, top 3. Like, he's unlucky not to win one of these Indianapolis races. I think what they should do for his benefit is put the walls a little bit closer, right? Put some tall buildings up around the track and call it Toronto.
Yeah. It worked out last year well enough when he dominated that race. I mean, like I said, call a spade a spade. This is Lundgaard's strongest track. He should have already had a win here a couple of years ago when Alex Rossi's car was underweight. But if you look at Lundgaard's performances since his debut in the series, which was this very race in 2021, his finishes at Indy's road course are 12th, 9th, 2nd, 4th, 4th, and 3rd.
Pretty good.
He's a demon round here. And there's 2 pole positions sprinkled into that as well. Like, Lundgaard is insanely quick around here. So of course, we're also going to gas him up a little bit, but by any measure, as a road and street specialist, Lundgaard is elite in this series now. He had an average finish of 7 on those tracks last year, and he's continuing that run of form here this year. And the only reason it's not higher is because he's been criminally unlucky all season long. He was screwed by Palou and St. Pete. He was put on a bad strategy here. That black tire run, the timing of it was horrible. It completely wrecked him in terms of that. Unsafe release at Long Beach, and then lost the pit battle to Will Power at Barber because the Rahal Letterman Lanigan team have just not been good operationally this year again. Like, if RNL loses Lundgaard, they're only going to have themselves to blame. The only blessing for them right now is that there is no room at the top. There just isn't.
Yeah, like, there is not... he's just outperforming the equipment to the point where there's just not really a whole lot more than he could do.
Yeah, what is Penske going to do if they push out Will Power? Not on performance, can you justify that? Because Will Power's back.
Yeah, Will Power has been the best he's looked in a couple of... Zenmaster Power is back.
Like, do not get it twisted on this. Palou is having an otherworldly start to this season. Will Power is only 12 points back. He is in range because he's had 3 second places to start this season, as well as finishing second in qualifying. So he's really making the number 2 a hobby so much he basically might as well call himself Mark Martin with all this finishing in second. It's wild.
I mean, it feels less spectacular than last year for Palou, I think, because you've got people chasing him who are also having really high level consistent seasons.
Yeah, Will Power's been excellent. Colton Herta has been excellent in his own right so far this season as well.
The only shining light for Andretti thus far in what has otherwise been not great.
And I need to point this out. A lot of people, me included, I was the one that was saying it on this show. I thought Power might be cooked after the back of last season. I was concerned, given obviously his mental health status, given that if you ever watched 100 Days to Indy, again, I highly recommend you do that particular episode, where his wife Liz is battling complications from a staph infection that nearly killed her. And it was clear, especially looking back on that show now, Power's head was not in it last year, and understandably so. I was curious to see how he would handle 2024 with a fresh off season, knowing his wife's back to good health, and just seeing how he gets on. He's been exceptional. He's been the shining light that Penske has needed in very tumultuous times for them as a team.
Let's call it.
Just a touch. I mean, the rock of the team has been back, and that's Will Power. It doesn't have to be Joseph so far this season, who's been very hot and cold so far this year, like he was last year, Joseph. Unfortunately, he was awful this weekend here, unfortunately.
Still getting bullied out on track.
Yeah, just very unlike him. But Power has been exceptional, and he was exceptional here again. He was running second pretty much all day, whether he was chasing Palou or chasing Lundgaard, depending on the race situation. Had a beautiful dive on Palou on the second stint to take the net second place off Palou at the time to get it. Like, Power is driving at a really high level again here. Great to see him back to something near his best in his age 43 season, and he's keeping Palou honest right now, and that's all we could hope for him right now. And he's won the 500 before, Will Power. It's if Penske are strong in race trim like they were last year, who knows?
I got these 500 betting odds. Would you take Will Power 12-1?
It's a good bet.
He's got the longest odds of all the Penske three. Joseph and Scott are both at 10s. Scott Dixon at 8-1. Pat O'Ward at 13-2, and Kyle Larson at 15-2, which is wild, but okay.
Larson at 15-2. Wow. Okay. Fair enough. Also, by the way, please gamble. If you're gonna do this, gamble responsibly. Thank you.
Honestly, we're not endorsed by any sports booking, so our conscience is clean.
Exactly. But look, it's not the value bet that I would take. Santino Ferrucci, annoyingly, is probably going to be a very good value bet here, but keep it to your fucking selves. But no, look, in Power at 12-1 is a great bet. Like, he's won this race before. He's proven to be very fast if the car beneath him is competitive. Why not Power at 12-1? Out of the three Penskes, I think that's far better value than McLaughlin, who has not had a good 500 yet. For by luck or by accident, McLaughlin does not deserve 10-1 odds for this race. He just doesn't. I'm sorry. Show me you can have a great 500 and then we'll talk. Newgarden won it last year. That's understandable. He's at 10s. He's going to be shorter by default. Power at 12s makes sense. I like those odds for Power. I really do. Palou is a very strong favorite bet at 4-1. I really like. He is. I've said it before. I think he's the fastest man at the Speedway and probably has been for the last 2 or 3 years now. He's just been consistently excellent. I mean, when Dixon had that unholy qualifying run, who was right there behind him? Alex Palou. Palou had that 2:34 run last year. And returned the favour a year later. The year before that Dixon miracle run, Palou finished second to Helio Castroneves, who was channeled by God and Nesquik that day. It's
casually finishing second to probably the greatest 500 runner of the modern age.
We talk about helmet tributes. I love that Helio is carrying his old teammate friend Gil DeFerrin's colors on his helmet for the 500. Who knows if he stands any chance of winning his Fit 500? I'd put him as a rank outsider, but I think it'll be cool to see if he could turn back a little bit of that clock just one more time.
Indeed. And I'm curious to see how that goes down in the end. But, I mean, like I said, the top three, their races were they were microcosms of their seasons so far. Palou very quietly going about his business as all the chaos has unfolded around him this year, and then reminding everybody, oh yeah, I'm still him, with that dominant win. And people look at the records and go, oh wait, he's not finished the race outside of the top 5 so far this season. Isn't that funny? And there he is, top of the standings again. Power back to something near his best. And that's great to see. Good for the series. Good for him.
Scott Dixon messed around and finished 4th again. Barely didn't even
he just won't go away.
Marcus Armstrong tied his best career finish. He got an actual points race this time, and we're barely talking about it. That's crazy.
Yeah, P5. Armstrong, the podcast, great day at the office for him in P5. That was the best he's looked in an IndyCar since he got here. Was running Dixon down right at the end of that race and was trying to pass him on the final lap. Couldn't quite get there, but 5th for Marcus Armstrong. Really great result from him. He's turning into a very solid driver in that number 11 car. I want to see how he does on an oval. Going to be very interesting to see how that goes down. That's the last piece of the Armstrong puzzle. If he gets that down, you've got a very strong driver in that 11 car.
I think he's got the team to give him solid footing on that regard.
Absolutely. Chip's always been strong at the 500. They're pretty good on most ovals. They struggle a bit more on the shorter ones, generally speaking. But super speedways, they've been as good as anybody for the last 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah, I said it's like Alex Palou's only weakness is that he's not as good at short ovals, and that's like saying he's only got a 90 in that stat instead of a 97.
Yeah, because he's practically racking up a 99 in every other stat these days.
Yeah. We had beef this weekend.
It's it is what's for dinner.
Bum ba-da-dum. But no, it started in Saturday warm-up. Before the race, Santino Ferrucci ran close to Romain Grosjean in the warm-up before running Grosjean off the road entirely during the early laps of the race. Santino received no punishment for that, for what it's worth. Marcus Harrison did get a 5-place drop position penalty for driving very sloppy in his own right. But back to Santino, he said to Kevin Lee after his car had a terminal mechanical failure, basically that this isn't Formula One. We race too hard around here. Dre, I know we've both got thoughts about this. You think IndyCar is deliberately trying to manufacture a heel like WWE is trying to manufacture main event Jey Uso? Like, I love me some Jey Uso. Do not get me wrong. Like, I think he's one of the greatest tag team wrestlers around, but maybe he's just not a great singles guy, and that's fine. You don't have to be. You don't have to make him what he's not either.
No.
I'm getting sidetracked here.
No. It was just a thought that occurred to me as I was watching the pre-show of this race, where they dedicated a good 5 minutes to, because this was, in Ferrucci's eyes, retaliation for what happened in Barber. Because in Barber's practice, Grosjean ran Ferrucci close to going off the road at the spider's web hairpin in the warm-up there. So this was, in Santino's eyes, this was retaliation. Very NASCAR-esque. He ran him close during Indy's warm-up, gave him the finger as he drove past him, and then during the race, ran him onto the grass, faced no formal discipline from IndyCar. I mean, I think it's ironic that he said this isn't Formula One for a guy that's had precisely 0 Formula One race starts.
The closest that Santino Ferrucci ever got to Formula One was being a reserve driver at Haas, and he threw that opportunity away of his own volition, whether it was his behavior in the F2 race at Silverstone or his people just not paying the bills, or both.
And alleged racism sprinkled in for good measure. Yeah,
don't tell his agent that. He'll say that he just didn't jive over there.
Yeah, it's... We've said on here before, and it's pretty much an open secret amongst IndyCar on social media, that Santino has, shall we say, conflicts of interest amongst those in the commentary booth, which does not help the situation at all. Because, I mean, when Kevin Lee is going, let's add some hate, and I'm just like, I roll my eyes, because this is very... And Santino's promo cut like it was something straight out of the WWE, ironically, where it's just like he's cutting a heel promo on Romain Grosjean, who is one of the most popular drivers in the series and is generally a well-liked human being in general.
You're just a less famous Miz.
Yeah, it's just... you could see what the commentary box, the production cart, they want Santino to be a star so bad, and he just hasn't got the results to back it up. He's had one genuinely great race weekend in the 5 years he's flirted around IndyCar now, between that and the NASCAR Xfinity Series. One prolific weekend, and people... And you could tell the truck so badly wants him to be the next young American face of the series, like an Alex Rossi, when he's not him. He just is not him. And that's why it comes off so contrived on camera, because you would never give your average person so Ferrucci had an average finish last year in IndyCar of 19.
Yeah.
And we're talking about he's something special. He's not.
And that was with 500.
And that was with an exceptional 500. It was otherwise, not much.
Dre.
Because, go on.
Dre, what happened to Colton Herta, who is just as young and just as American and has actually put together results? I know 2-year win drop, but he's actually written those checks and been able to cash them with his ass.
Colton Herta has 2 top 4 championship finishes in IndyCar. He was 3rd in his first year at Andretti and was 4th the year afterwards. Colton Herta is still only 23 years old, and in this particular race, he was punted off by his teammate Marcus Ericsson early doors in that race. Ironically, Ericsson got a 5-position drop penalty as punishment.
A very similar incident.
Yeah, for a carbon copy incident of running a dude into the gravel with avoidable contact. Ericsson got hit with a 5-place penalty and Ferrucci got away unscathed. This is why people think Ferrucci gets preferential treatment.
It's also just like very, very clumsy stewarding from Mad Max Pappas. Like, Max, we love some of your driving, but man, you gotta take a step back from this a bit because this is silly.
Like, during that incident with Ferrucci, Grosjean had his car side by side with Ferrucci going towards that hard right-hander. At that point, Grosjean is surely entitled to racing room. He's earned that right on the outside line. You do not... I don't like that the Verstappen amendment I laid out in 2019 is still having an impact on how motorsport is officiated 5 years later. I hate it.
That ain't even that. This is just a continuation of what we used to call Rossi out for doing years ago.
Yeah, Rossi
2017, 2018, and he wasn't getting penalized for it. Now it's just standard fare in IndyCar.
And that's the ironic thing for Colton Herta was Colton Herta would go on to finish in 7th. He had a fantastic comeback in this race. His pace was exceptional.
He's having a great season thus far.
Colton Herta got closer to F1 than Santino did, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
Santino Ferrucci's most notable flirt with Formula One was being in the same paddock.
Yeah, like Colton Herta has every credential you could want as a young, up-and-coming American star to be the future face of your series. Yes, he
up to the nepotism angle. He's a second-generation driver. He's not a nepo baby, of course.
No, right, of course not.
Right, and here we are, right? Like, is it because Colton Herta? Is it because he flirted with Formula One?
I wouldn't necessarily think that. I just think like I think it's the bias from within the NBC commentary bots that makes Colton Herta feel like relative chopped liver in this case. I bring up Colton Herta because they're both in the same bracket of just like the next American star, because ideally, Joseph Newgarden should be the American star of the present in the past, like 7-8 years.
And he's now facing the biggest court of public opinion bashing that we've ever had about Joseph Newgarden with two sides of very polarizing extremes where one half are going out of their way to ludicrously defend him on Twitter, while Marshall Pruitt is scathing in his remarks about him in his latest mailbag that came out last week. It's like with most things in life, it's probably somewhere in the middle, but Joseph Newgarden is still facing the court of public opinion when he probably shouldn't have done for the Penske cheating scandal, when ultimately his team's responsible for what happened and not him.
Yeah, we talked about it when that suspension went. We talked about it when the penalties went down, right?
He's been getting used as a punching bag out on the racetrack.
Like Jack Harvey, like we love Jack Harvey on this show, right? But Jack Harvey also drove like a dingus running Newgarden to the pit wall during the Grand Prix. You cannot do that, buddy.
That was a disgraceful racecraft from Jack Harvey. That was Schumacher on Barrichello at Hungary 2010. You almost ran Newgarden into the wall and had contact with him. How is that not a penalty? Honestly, that was disgraceful driving. That could have been an airplane crash between Harvey and Newgarden. And, like, I do not understand how Marcus Ericsson rightly got punished for what he did to Colton Herta, but Ferrucci got away scot-free and Harvey got away scot-free.
Cam, I'll tell you, it's like, why did Sam Bennett of the Florida Panthers get rewarded for a goal when he shoved Charlie Coyle on top of Jeremy
God, I wish this was a Discord call so I could kick him from the chat.
I mean, it comes back to the same principle. Sometimes, like, referees don't call it by the rules; they just call it for entertainment value. I don't know what the entertainment value is in this to just be inconsistent.
For a series so desperate, pleading with the masses to take it seriously, they're not helping their own case when this is your on-track product.
They've got a storytelling problem. They don't.
They have an every aspect of marketing problem, and the storytelling is the biggest one.
And I wrote about this on the website because, like, here's what I think about here, right? And I gave it a deep dive the other day, and my thought was, you've got a perfectly good 30-minute pre-show. I wish it was 60. I think it should have a 1 hour pre-show because you've got more time.
Give it however much time NASCAR has. Give it that.
Yeah, exactly. Most NASCAR races have a 1 hour pre-show, right? There's no reason why IndyCar can't have the same, right? It's got the tools to promote itself well if it wanted to. 100 Days to Indy, like, I think it's pretty mediocre. It's not a bad show. It's a good enhancement to the series. Why aren't you taking clips from that show more often and putting it in your pre-show?
Well, because everyone's watching it over on CW, where it's currently racking up a scintillating 0.0 TV rating.
And that's a failing. Like, why isn't 100 Days to Indy current? Why aren't those current episodes being aired on Paramount Plus? Why do you have to wait a year to stream those? Because streaming's the game now.
They should have been ahead of the 8 ball and said, we'll go on whatever streaming platform will take us, whether it be Hulu, whether it be Netflix, whether it be Paramount Plus, whatever it is. Right? They should have gone out ahead of the curve and put this out on the first streaming service that would have taken them. Season 1 of 100 Days Indy is now available on Netflix, but it's too late. It's a year has gone by. It's not relevant anymore. Like, and all the people that have wanted to watch that show have probably already gone out of their way to watch it by now. The nature of it being such an insular series. You need to be taking... Like, Liz Powers struggles with staff. I've talked about this a lot on this show. It would have made an excellent 10-minute segment on an IndyCar pre-show before a major race. How about during Road America, when Will Power was threatening to punch Grosjean in the face and giving Scott Dixon the double bird? That would have been the perfect context to run alongside Power's mental frustrations. And here's why he's frustrated. Because his wife nearly died earlier that year. Why aren't you doing that? I've said it before. IndyCar's best pre-race content is Java with James, and it's on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, like I like having it as part of the YouTube channel, but you could also throw that into race broadcasts as like a regular pre-race segment.
The most marketable thing you have in your series is not your racing. Everybody who watches IndyCar knows it produces good racing. It's the drivers. If there's one thing IndyCar should have taken away from Liberty Media's ownership and the rise of its marketing power and the rise of Drive to Survive, it's that Bernie is not the show, F1 is not the show, it's the drivers that sell this thing.
Squishy bit in the middle, and you've got personalities. You have a grid of people. They're not. Most of them are not just like cardboard cutout created drivers with the personality of a sheet of printer paper.
Alex Palou is a fascinating character. He ran a coffee shop in Japan while learning 3 different languages. And part of the fun of his episode with Java with James was trying to get James to like a coffee because he doesn't drink coffee. It's the irony of the show. That's a fascinating
but you know what we have to do instead of that, Dre? Is call him the same nickname for the 4 years in a row and cite fried chicken.
The professor of precision. I'm just like, guys, this is not going to make people like me anymore. It's lazy.
I like him as an Alain Prost type character. I think he's very charismatic, but I get your point. In fact, Nathan Brown pointed out that he doesn't normally celebrate with fried chicken after a win nowadays, which is wild.
It's a bit. It's a lazy bit that you've attached him to because he did it. He did it the
Dre,
main time.
Are you saying that IndyCar is too committed to bits that we've done before? That is crazy. Who would ever do such a thing?
I have no idea. Can't imagine.
Jokes aside, but it does get lazy. Like, Patricia Ward has more than just fast hands. He's got a really likable story of a guy who is clearly talented on the road to Indy, but could just never scrape together the budget. He finally gets his first break. It gets ripped out from underneath him. He thinks he's got something with Red Bull. That gets ripped from underneath him, and he finally finds home in McLaren, where his talent gets to shine, and he's one of the more popular drivers this year.
He's
he
the
is
most popular guy in the series.
What little marketing IndyCar does, they have viable stories on the table in front of them, and they don't know how to tell them.
Yeah, and that's something that I've noticed most in watching that pre-show, seeing how much talk Ferrucci was getting and realizing you're doing this the wrong way. Like, don't get me wrong, you need social content, you need good content on social media. I'm not disputing that, and the Java with James series is excellent on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's a shame no one watches it because it gets 3,000 views a video.
Do more stuff like it.
Yeah, there's like tiny cars on NBC side of it. It's hilarious. Just having drivers do a 60-second interview in a tiny car and being asked the same questions by James. By the way, James Hinchcliffe is an absolute star. He is so magnetic for that series as a broadcaster. I can't even tell you. I'm so glad that F1 people are starting to recognize how good he is at this.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. If NBC leaves somewhere, you've got to bring him on board. And that's the other thing too, is like, we've been hammering NBC hard on this. Are you sure it's going to be that much better on Fox or the CW if they do decide to change? Because I'll tell you, NASCAR people have no confidence in how Fox Sports has been just cutting back so much of the effort.
Yeah, Fox has completely phoned in their last couple seasons with NASCAR. But they're giving up the Coke 600 next year.
To Amazon Prime. A Grand Slam race is going to be streaming exclusive. That's crazy.
And Race Hub is dead.
Race Hub is dead.
In less than a month's time.
The grass ain't always greener, I gotta tell you. Like, as much as we've been annoyed with Townsend Bell and then Paul Tracy before him, back when Townsend Bell was Paul Tracy's babysitter, the grass ain't always greener.
No, it is not. And
no, but it's emblematic of everything that we've been saying for months with this series. Geez, if they end up in CW, what are the races going to pull then?
Oh, you better hope it pulls better than the Xfinity series.
Yeah. Because even on Fox, it was doing $2 million a race. Like, most Xfinity races would do better than Formula One on a race weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's crazy that we had a Formula One race that outdrew everything.
Yeah, and I know the CW are trying to get more sports on its package, but if you go to that network, it's dead. You are not getting enough TV ratings and ad space to justify its existence on the CW.
You're basically taking the same gamble that the series took when it moved to. Before it was NBC Sports Network, it was called Versus. It was the rebranded Outdoor Life Network, which was famous for being the only cable television network that would give the NHL a cable television deal after they lost a season due to the lockout. And the Versus races were good, but I can't imagine that the upside was there. Most people were watching the ABC or ESPN races whenever they came around.
Yeah, and Jason makes a great point in our chat talking about what happened to Formula E. Now, for those who don't know what Jason's talking about here, in the UK, because this is a UK problem. Hi, British listeners. Hi. Trey here. Glad I could join you. For those who don't know, for the context, Britain has always had Formula E on a free-to-air channel of some kind. It started out on ITV, it went to BBC, it went to Channel 5 briefly, it ended its run on to domestic free-to-air on Channel 4. Even if it wasn't on one of the big Channel 4 channels, it would always have a free YouTube stream that anybody could watch, so the numbers were always there. There was always a way you could watch Formula E for nothing. Good stuff all around. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of these networks didn't give the series a lot of credit or marketing. It was just, hey, we have Formula E, go watch it. But it was still better than what it is now, because this year it's behind the TNT Sports paywall. It's £30 a month to the average person to watch the product, and that's simply not affordable to most Brits in the UK. And if this sounds familiar to you, it's exactly what I've complained about with MotoGP in this country, because that's what happened to MotoGP 10 years ago. It was on BBC Two. Every race was available for free on BBC Two, and then BT Sport, as it was known back then, bought out the rights in 2013, and it never recovered. In fact, its audience went down about 85% behind the paywall. I don't want IndyCar to go the same way.
Yeah. I should clarify that the CW is a what the U.S. equivalent of a free-to-air network, but it is the descendant of UPN and the WB, which were both the distant fifth and sixth biggest, and the CW is now the fifth biggest free-to-air behind the big four of NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox. CW's quite a ways down. Like, they've got a good sports portfolio, but it's just a matter of convincing people to tune into the fifth largest free to air. Like, Dre, what would be like a good equivalent for the CW over there?
Probably something like Dave, where it's just like.
Do you think Formula E would be a hit on Dave?
It would probably do all right. It's a racing series and it's a men's branded channel. It will probably do all right. Where's my internal combustion engines, etc. will probably be a complaint, but it would still probably pull decent numbers in between reruns of Taskmaster and Top Gear all day.
Yeah.
I get you. It would do something, but no. Look,
we're in sidetrack because, there's a storytelling problem in the series. Like, that's frustrating because you said, and I agree with you that all the ingredients are there for this to be a bigger deal than it is right now.
You have a 60-minute pre-show. Don't be afraid to take what's working. Annoyingly, people are probably going to think that Java with James is not working because it only gets 3,000 to 5,000 views, which is tragic for how good it is in terms of content. Use it better. Use it on your broadcast where you know you're going to have at least 500,000 people watching you most weekends. Probably, if not a little bit more than that, given IndyCar's average is normally a fair bit higher than that. Use your social media effectively. Tell stories in the pre-show. I watched this race's pre-show, and it was basically an advert for the Indy 500 in 2 weeks' time. Don't get me wrong. We all love the Indy 500. It's the biggest race of the year. Standalone race of the year in all of motorsport. It doesn't need the help. It sells itself. You've had 110 years now to sell the reputation, the valor, and the honor of the Indy 500. It doesn't need the marketing help. You need help with the other 16 races a year that you have on your network that less than 1 million people are watching right now.
Yeah.
That's where you need to figure out. That's your core audience, not the 500. People will tune in for that regardless because it's a special occasion. It's earned the right to be a special attraction. You need people to be figuring out, why aren't we getting 1 million viewers for Road America? Why are we only getting 300,000 for Long Beach? That's what you need to be figuring out right now. Sell your drivers, sell your stories, use the TV time you've got effectively. Not a lot of series can claim it has a reality TV show on a free-to-air TV network, and yet no one watches it. Not even IndyCar's hardcore fans want to watch it, because if it did, it wouldn't be pulling a 0.0. It's that simple.
Yeah. I'm totally in agreement with you there.
Same here.
Now, we did get some news that we did get a formal commitment, a recommitment, that IndyCar's new hybrid power units will debut on July 7th at the Honda Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio, presented by the 2025 Honda Civic Hybrid. They've logged 23,518 miles at the since August. I hope the extra time in the oven was worth it. I really, really do. I don't want this race to be decided on a fucking slew of mechanical failure. I hope the extra time, the extra delays mean we have a product that holds up. Because this does sound exciting.
Yeah, they've done thousands of miles of testing by now. They should have this down. Have this down. I'm still not a fan of it debuting mid-season. I'd rather they'd have just waited for 2025 at this point, because I think it could have a catastrophic effect on the championship battle, and I don't think it's a fair fight. They're not the same car you had when the season started. I think that's important to mention in a spec series, that and a big technology change in regards to said series. So I'm nervous about that. especially given we have 6 ovals to close out the year in the final 8 races with hybrid power on an oval. That's going to be fascinating. And
I'm really curious to see how that works as well, because like I'm for it. Like as people out there are making a big pushback against hybrids in their racing series, particularly in sprint formats. I'm just like, it does add excitement. It does add a new element, and I'm fascinated to see how it plays out. Yes, it's a sizable investment, but you got to spend money to make money, as we always say. Yes, it makes the cars heavier. Everything's heavier. Yes, it's a new variable. Like, again, I hear you on the fact that it's a mid-season change. I'm not sure how that's going to shake out. I'd like to think that the top teams, the teams that are right in the thick of the championship fight, will have a good understanding, because Lord knows they've had more mileage than like the bottom half of the grid.
That's a fair point.
I'm really curious to see how it plays out. They need, more importantly, I just love to see this paired with like a new chassis. I hope we can get it sometime. Even Dale Coyne has said, like, yeah, I don't have that many resources, but I want a new car too.
We all want a new car. We've watched this car in some capacity for over a decade now.
It's a great car. Don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic car.
It's a great car, but, you know, we'd like to see a new one out of curiosity. Because when you're going to slap a big old fuck-off hybrid in it, I mean, damn, it's going to be a lot. And like you said on Twitter, sports cars is thriving in the hybrid era.
Yeah.
Single-seaters haven't got an excuse.
Yeah. I do understand, though, that there are, like, mitigating factors. It's like OEMs are also the big reason why people are invested in sports cars nowadays. And that's also something that IndyCar...
But then there you go, because they're biting. They made rules that appealed to them, and the fish are biting.
I don't know how you can flip around this rule. It's like, do you think just cribbing IMSA's engine and powertrain formula is going to be a benefit to IndyCar?
Good luck trying to balance that for the 500.
Mm-hmm. So then what do you do?
Well, they better do something.
Because Honda's price in the sport looks ever more precarious the more you hear about it. And I'm sure Chevrolet and Imlor would love to get the full control supply, but can you guarantee that there will be 27 full-time entries with one manufacturer taking up all the space?
29 next year with Prima coming in.
Wow. Because, like, despite
Pratt and Miller just shelved their program for the time being.
Because despite all of our doomsaying, there's still parties that want to be a part of this series. They got to give us more.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Anywho, IndyCar, we'll be back to talk a little bit more IndyCar for our Indy 500 preview special next week after qualifying. We talk a bit about practice, but there barely has been any, because it's been rained out for the first 2 days for the most part. We got a bit of sun towards the end of today's running, but not much to really say about it in that sense. We'll talk about a little bit more next week, alongside Formula One's return to Imola. Good to see it back at Imola after a year out, after the horrible flooding of 2023 that's claimed, sadly, half a dozen lives and all that. Good to see Formula One back at Imola, and good to see one of the most beautiful racetracks in the world get some action and maybe 2 or 3 overtakes over the course of the weekend. I look forward to seeing how that plays out. We'll talk about it on next week's show. But until then, I've been Dre Harris, and they've been RJ O'Connell and Cameron Buckley. And until next time, thank you very much for listening. Sayonara.
Later, y'all. Please take care of Teo Porcher for us.
I think you might be highballing it there with the 2 or 3 overtakes.